Hi, everyone. It's Joy Brooks with Email and Coffee. So today, this wonderful Friday, it's always Friday at Email and Coffee. Today, I'm talking with Scott Hardigree. He's a good friend of mine from way back who's probably been instrumental in half the jobs I've had. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Joy. Thanks for having me.
Mhm.
Where do I start? Let's see. Well, I've been in email since 1999. My first job was an email designer for a sweepstakes company. For those of you that are old enough, when the internet first got started, and particularly email, there were lots of sweepstakes and lotteries and brands trying to get consumers to opt into things. I unfortunately didn't know a thing about design or email. So on my way for this job interview, I was um, just a slight detour. The interesting fact is it was about a 3 hour drive for the interview, and I had to read the O'Reilly book on HTML on my way down there because it was both a management and a technical interview. And yeah, that was my sort of first actual like real job out of college. And I only lasted there for, I don't know, maybe 3 months. I actually ended up getting fired. And shortly thereafter started my very first business, which was an agency. Back then we called it an interactive agency. Now it would just be, well, a digital agency or just an agency. But we did a lot of email design because I had already sort of known people in that world. Of course, we did website design, and believe it or not, we did a lot of development for CD-ROMs that you put in your computer. Um, and I've been in email ever since. Along the way, I've been fortunate enough to build and sell a couple of companies. Nothing massive, but it was a fun exercise. And I actually founded Email Industries in 2008. So I guess that was what, 14 something years ago. And you and I probably met not too much longer after that through our mutual friend, Chris Donald, over at Inbox Group / Inbox Army. Um, so yeah, with Email Industries, we started out and still are in a lot of ways a full service email marketing agency. We're very heavy on the professional services side. But something interesting happened along the way, and that was
As life normally does.
that is very true. Is that we were doing some work for MailChimp, and this is back when MailChimp, I think they had, I don't know, less than 100 employees or something to that effect. Maybe I think it was 60 actually, and they asked us if they could help get our input on a software product that they were building, and this product was a way to identify people's whose lists like weren't permission based.
Mm.
And anyway, we built it, and that was our sort of first time sticking my toe into the product side of things. And that was way back in 2012, so 10
And
years.
MailChimp still uses it today.
Yeah, yeah. And
Don't upload a nasty list of MailChimp.
yeah, they will sniff you out. And we've been fortunate enough to work with lots of companies that use it for that.
Mhm.
Um, but also even on the professional services side, we still, of course, do a lot of that. But I guess, and I'm not sure why this is. My wife was asking me last week, saying that you guys started out doing like a lot of strategy and creative around email, and now it's almost all exclusively around email deliverability. So a lot of consulting, work with a lot of cool brands, and the only reason I have is I think it's just because like maybe the older I get, the less creative I become, and the more analytical. Maybe that happens to some a lot of folks, but I think it happened to me, whereby I was just the design and the creative just wasn't as appealing, or maybe I felt like I had done that enough.
Mm.
So now it's a lot of analysis, and it's more fun. It's like problem solving.
Mhm.
Um, the problems are sort of universal, but each case is unique. So that's
Mhm.
still pretty fun. So, what was it, 2 years ago, we actually launched our second product, Alfred. It is a list hygiene tool. It's at alfredknows.com. And it's actually built upon that product called Blackbox that we initially built for MailChimp.
Right.
And this one is more brand facing. Um, we built it, we have a pretty unique data set, and we wanted to leverage that, but also all the deliverability consulting we had done in the previous 10 years really helped inform that product, I think, a little better. So now it's we're probably about 50-50 in terms of how we spend our energy and how we make our money as well around professional services, mostly deliverability related stuff, and product, which is mostly list hygiene related stuff.
Right. It makes sense, the evolution makes sense because the design and development, it has been brought forward with drag and drops. And a lot, it amazes me to this day how many marketing professionals I will speak with, and they'll all say, "Oh, you do email marketing? Oh, I've been a constant contact, blah, 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 reseller." And I'm like, oh, do I have to have this conversation? So I'll say, Constant Contact bought SharpSpring. You really ought to look at that tool. But they're all used to the drag and drop. And the design is based upon this little modular tool, which is very handy. I'm not going to deny that. It's not creative. And so a lot of the creative has been taken out of email. It's just like, oh, I have this image and I have this content and I'm going to just plug it in and send my email. And they think they're email marketers. And they are, to some extent. Obviously, they're using the tools and they're sending their stuff and they're doing email marketing. But the real stuff comes in when they can't figure out the reasons why they can't get the email delivered, or perhaps the conversions aren't happening, or all of the things that deliverability suggests. And they can't figure that stuff out. And they don't understand list management. Oh, well, I just, I went to a few places, or I've got partnerships and we're using lists, and you're like, ooh, let's plan a way for you to actually get a holistic list. Oh, I do have an holistic list. And then you have to have that whole conversation with somebody by saying, no, removing everybody from Outlook and putting them into your email marketing is not a holistic list. Those may be leads and prospects, but they're not opt-ins exactly. And this is the difference.
That is interesting you say that, because one of the problems we run into regularly is just the language that we use and what our customer might use or our prospect might use. They're just so different. So we have to work very hard to define. I think you used the word holistic, right? So sometimes we'll sort of like, okay, organic, right? So the list that, it came through, a very, exactly where it came from. The customer understands that they're going to be reached out to. And, the customer just sometimes we just use different languages.
Yes.
And that's what's so cool about deliverability, then, is that they'll go, no, this is absolutely organic. And in the end, the data always tells the story.
The data.
You can come back and say, I know you say this, but here is the root cause. Somehow this, someone opened up a old CD that was sitting in a drawer for, 5 years and
they're ours. These are this is my company. This is an asset. And they mean it. And you can't, they're so passionate about it. And it's almost sad. There's like a sadness in me that says, I know these are your customers, but they are not opt-in customers. They do not know your brand exists right now. They may know you from way back. Had a dinner party in 1962. And, oh, I remember you wore that funny hat. And that's all they remember. They don't know that you work for this company. and they don't know what this company provides, services, products, and you're suddenly sending them email and you're wondering why you're not getting any response. There's no reciprocal arrangement here. It's one way. You have their name. There has to be something reciprocal. It's a difficult task to not necessarily for direct to consumer, but for businesses, B2B, list management and list nurture and prospecting is difficult, and it's totally different.
Yeah,
Totally different animal. And it reacts totally differently. Very rarely can a direct to consumer list tank you, but a bad list from a B2B, you could be blacklisted in a half a second.
Yeah, and in fact, because of a large portion of what we do is deliverability consulting related, as a byproduct, the vast majority of our clients are B2B senders because they are the ones, to your point, that have the most problems.
Right.
And sometimes it's just, there's a very narrow, their audience is very small. So it means that they have a higher probability of a small mistake can turn into a big one. And the other is some of their business practices. So there may be the marketing team's doing one thing and the sales team might be doing something entirely, sort of in violation of the rules of their email service provider. The marketing team is often caught unaware. Just that one hand doesn't know what the other one is doing. So the inherent risk of just B2B, it is sales centric. So with sales comes prospecting. With prospecting comes complaints, spam complaints, and with spam complaints comes deliverability problems.
Yeah, the email marketing for B2B, and it is sales heavy. And it's all about sales. It's not about marketing. It's all about sales. Because when it comes down to it, the business is not going to say, well, how much money did marketing make? Because marketing doesn't make money. Sales does. So they're going to not even talk to, they're not going to talk to marketing. They're going to talk to sales. And the salesperson's going to have a meeting with the CMO and tell the CMO what they're going to be doing. And that's the way it goes. But there is a way to manage that. And the concept of cold email, cold is not a 4-letter word. There's a way of managing cold email. And this is why companies like Salesforce, SharpSpring, a lot of the companies that have a CRM portion baked into the email marketing software that allows sales and marketing to concurrently be talking with the same customers or somewhat same customers, and literally allows the flow from sales right into marketing because it's the same software. Allows the sales department to send their messaging, but allows marketing to have design for that so that the branding doesn't suddenly look like, what? I just went from hell to hell in a handbasket. It allows there to be a flow. So there's a lot of email service providers out there that allow for that sales to start the marketing process. So you go through the whole funnel channel with sales, and then in the end, you get converted to marketing, where now, as you're being sold some sort of the first product or the first service, and then, you go into the marketing flow. And that's the essential difference between the model between, direct to consumer or D2C or B2B, and then B2C, A, B, C, D. Okay. There's a difference between the retail side of business. And for me anyway, when I have customers or prospects call me up and they want to talk about email, and they tell me what they do, and it's clear, it's cold email. and they're talking to me along the lines of a retail model. I'm like, you're not a retail. You don't have a tangible product to sell. You have a service. You don't have a product. You don't have a shoe. There's no
Right.
makeup involved. You're not selling a dress. So you can't even, don't talk about it along those lines. It's not going to be that quick. You're not going to get a conversion. You're selling insurance, for goodness sake. You're not selling a shoe. You're not going to have somebody look at the shoe and say, that's great. I need a size 9. Do you have it? And the sale is done. You know, you're going to have, well, what do you do? Well, are you going to be there tomorrow? I mean, I'm going to give you how much money? You're going to take how much money from me? What, you know, all these questions. So the whole cycle is different. Everything is different. And that's, you know, that's the big difference between the two modes or models of email marketing. They're not the same. But let's get back to email industries. So,
I don't remember where we left off.
yeah, really, we were talking about how you've evolved, but I would say the business has evolved as well. I mean, you know, you're going in the same way that the business is going, because ESPs are taking care of design, right?
Mhm.
And no one takes care of deliverability, and it goes along. You know, it goes along really well in the beginning, assuming that you do some sort of a warming, and then suddenly you're at a point where you're at 90 something, and then, you know, like 90, maybe 95 to 99, and you're really excited, and then you're like a 92, and then you're in the 80s, and you're tanking,
Mhm.
and you don't know what's going on, and now you need a deliverability specialist.
Yeah, you know, I do love that. I mean, so we're a small company, right? There's between full-time, part-time, and contractors, 12, 13 of us. So a company of this size, you know, and being the owner, um, it's just naturally going to sort of follow, like, you know, my interest, that, you know, on some level, right? But to your point, we're definitely following market trends, and that is, you know, it's hard to argue with, you know, when the customers, you know, your inbound leads. I'm a little bit of an SEO nerd, and we've always had some success in that arena. And when the deliverability, this is maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it was always a part of what we did. But as the volume increased and the demand increased, we just got better at it. The knowledge, you know, the course deliverability has changed, but I guess to your point, yeah, we sort of followed that demand because it is more rare earth than strategy or creative. As you mentioned, now it's become so boxy and modular, that, you know, has to be drag and drop friendly, master template friendly, that can be repurposed for every purpose. Yeah, it's not all that creative, and it wasn't, honestly, isn't all that fun to do as it used to be.
It doesn't, you know, it doesn't really need to be that, you know, it sounds like Debbie Downer. It doesn't really need to be that creative, because on the other end, you've got the consumer that is basically saying, I'm either interested or I'm not. And I'm telling you right now, I ain't got time.
That's right.
So
make it great fast.
You've got to get in, but you've got to get in there. That's the circle. You've got, everybody's too busy, and either I'm interested or I'm not. Now, there's various different types of interest. I'm really interested and I'm vaguely interested, but I'm not interested is I'm not interested. The end. So, you know, it's somewhat, it's a game to get into that I'm interested funnel. And the game is deliverability, because if it ain't getting delivered and they're slightly interested, you lose. And they're
Right.
slightly interested. So,
Yeah. That's
and
the
you're,
old, what's the old lottery adage, or it was like an old slogan. I think it was something like, you got to be in it to win it.
yeah. The point is, if you've got their name and if they've opted in, if you quote unquote legally got their name, they've opted in other words, they're slightly interested. Right. They're in it they're in it. And if you're not getting to their inbox for any particular reason, possibly they have a Comcast address, just shoot yourself in the head.
You're right. It is all for naught if you're not making it. All of the strategy, all the creative, and everything else is for companies that have found that email, moves the needle in terms of revenue. Deliverability is critical. Like, so even like of course, it all depends on the size of the brand, and it's all relative. But a small percentage of email not getting to the inbox, or inversely, if you can increase the volume that is actually making it to the inbox, can make a huge difference. Particularly, why we like it too is in this, it's different. So, like as you mentioned before, with B2B, it's a typically smaller audiences, but each contact in that database, the lifetime value is a multiple greater than what it's going to be on a B2C or direct to consumer brand. But the numbers still affect them. So, say a lifetime value might be $10,000 on the B2B side,
Right.
maybe $400 on the consumer side, but there's so much more of them. So it hurts both ways. It just hurts.
And the B2C's got repeat, repeat sales. So if you buy something for $400 4 times a year, you rarely have somebody buy $10,000 4 times a year.
That's exactly right.
Right. So they're in it for $10,000, but you'll see them next year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you're signing a yearly contract and now you're in it 10,000 over the years, that's great. But, it's such a different model. It's such a different model. So, some of the obvious issues, the most obvious issue with deliverability is hygiene. And that's almost the easiest thing for an email marketer to do on their own.
It's the easiest, but it's also
most painful because they don't want to let go of anybody.
They don't. But also too, though, it's not just the easiest, it is the one thing, or the thing that's most in their control.
Right.
To determine how their deliverability is going to perform. So spam complaints, which will negatively affect, that's a little bit somewhat in your control, but not entirely. How your email is set up, configuration, yeah, that's pretty much within your control. But just ensuring you're not sending to too many hard bounces, or you're cleaning out recycled spam traps. It's inexpensive. I mean, it's I hate to say it, but it's almost become commoditized as a service. We like to think ours is better because it's sort of a 2-in-1, but even then, it's for an average size list, it's tens or hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, for something pretty big. But it's just something that you can do as a marketer to say, like, all right, I'm not going to shoot myself in the foot. I can just do this one thing very, very easy. And most people that we do deliverability audits for, it is, that's candidate number one.
That's the first thing you do.
Right. There's always multiple things that a customer that is could have done better or just really screwed up. But hygiene is usually one of these things that you could have kind of nipped this a little bit. It spiraled out of control, and now you've crossed over some threshold.
Exactly.
And now we need to rebuild your reputation.
Exactly. Go back to warming. You go right back to warming.
That's right. Yeah, got to look back. They really handicap themselves.
They shot themselves in the knee. What I've often said to people over the past 2 years is, do you realize that how many people have been laid off because of COVID? All of those business names are in your B2B lists, where these people don't exist anymore. Everybody was laid off. A year into COVID, everyone was laid off and businesses went into remote work. So you're sending to somebody that doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, there's always been incredible churn in the B2B space.
Exactly. But
10
COVID,
years ago, it
COVID
was,
just accelerated it.
oh, forget about it. Right. And even now with, the average tenure at a job isn't what it used to be either, obviously, right? 10 years ago, forget 20 years ago, 5 years ago. So it's very difficult to keep these addresses up to date. And if you don't mail regularly, which honestly is the best way to sort of hygiene your list, right? I mean, there's natural attrition that happens, but as brands, we're not very good email marketers sometimes. The cobbler's children
Have the
thing, right?
worst shoes.
Well, okay, so case in point, I don't think we've sent out a campaign in probably 6 months. I kid you not. And I know that's probably common in our
Well,
space.
let me know. I can help you out with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. We actually, yeah. I mean, it's just the thing. I guess that's a sign a business is sort of going well. Is that we're not.
Well,
Yeah, we're a little busy.
yourself.
We're a little busy. We've sort of front loaded everything on, so the deliverables, and then behind that is sales to pay for the people that are making the deliverables, and marketing is for us at this point is like that would be nice, but honestly, we're pretty busy with just the deliverable and sales part.
Well, like everyone else, you've got to find that voice for your email marketing. You've got to decide what you're going to do. Is it going to be just that top of mind, or are you going to be giving tips, or are you going to be doing some sort of partnership? I mean, you've got to figure out what you're doing.
Yep.
And until that point, you're like, let's not do anything. But as they say, something is better than nothing. And you'll never be perfect. So I'm only saying, I don't do any email marketing either. So
see, case in point. Yeah. And it's not uncommon. And I know I'm definitely not practicing what we preach.
Yes. But so as you've been there, you have been an entrepreneur for so long, right? So you've always thought to yourself, this business sounds like a good idea, let's do it. And as you do it, your own metrics will tell you, is this good? Is this bad? Is it time to sell? So how's the business been going?
Oh, it's been, well, we've had an incredible run. And I don't know if it was, okay, so there's two theories on about 2.5 years ago where things really started to scale for us. And I think it was two things. One is I did operate it as sort of like a lifestyle business for a while, a few years, where generate a nice stable income, but it allowed me to do other things. And one of the other things I did is I got involved with our local startup community. And you reminded me of that a second ago. They have the startup community has the done is better than perfect adage. You said something in that ballpark. And anyway, I was as close to sort of like a startup founder that we had here where I'm based in Augusta, Georgia. Great city for business, but it's a lot of traditional businesses. And I was approached by a group out of Georgia Tech called ATDC, and they said, we're looking for a startup coach in Augusta, statewide, outside of Atlanta, where we're based. And I said, that sounds interesting. So I raised my hand, and still business is just sort of doing its thing in the background. I did it for 2 years, pre-COVID. And I probably was the last person to be a startup coach because I was really had run a services business. But I studied a lot. But ultimately what ended up happening is everything I sort of taught as a startup coach, I turned around and said, maybe I should apply this to my business. And that was sort of what got things started. So I mentioned two theories. One was I was just motivated to apply this new information that I had, but also it was sort of like post-COVID, and people's businesses still needed to generate revenue, and I think the leads just sort of started increasing too. And I was like, okay, great. This is again like SEO. So they started to increase, and since that time we have experienced incredible growth. It's been like Let's see, last 2 years running, well, last year was like 87%. It was 70 something the year before that. And I'm just kind of having fun right now. In terms of you had said earlier about, oh, do you sell it or do you have an exit? And I'm sure that'll happen at some point. I do hope to retire by the time I'm 55, if I can pull that off. So I've still got a few years before we get there. So that's kind of the horizon, if the stars align. But honestly, this is the most fun I've had running a business in a very long time.
Well, that's good. And I really think that's the most important thing. I have this theory. I can't find stats specific. And I am going to have a conversation with another person shortly, another podcast that I have in plans. Business, I can't speak for anything but America because I'm only here. But business has critically changed, where so many people either are moonlighting, like, oh, I do this, but I'm also X, Y, and Z. And I'm making money doing that. And eventually segue into just doing that. I
can validate that completely.
I have never seen so many entrepreneurs in my life. Or so many people that consider themselves entrepreneurs. Or so many people who are in corporate business that are already formulating becoming an entrepreneur. And it's because corporate life, listen, I went through the corporate meat grinder. And it was a meat grinder for me. I didn't fit at all. And there are many people that fit, but I just didn't fit. When it came time for me to do reviews, I was honest. Oh God, you're not supposed to be honest when you do a review, because then they hold it right to you. Every time you turn around, you want to do something. Well, you said during your review that this, that, and the other thing. We have it written down here. Like, am I flip-flopping or am I just growing? I'm sorry if I'm growing. I didn't realize that I had to be, because I said I wanted to be an astronaut when I was 5 years old, that I have to be an astronaut now. I'm sorry. I just didn't fit. So, when I got laid off for the 190th time in marketing, when the company was bought by another company, and they said, oh, we already have a marketing department, sorry, and I got laid off. Every single time that happened, I was like, what's going on here? First of all, I don't feel like I fit. And second of all, I keep on getting laid off the whole department. And I just went on my own way. It happened by default for me. And then as that was happening, I realized I'm an entrepreneur. I have this innovative spirit where I know what I can do. I know what I can't do. And I enjoy that launch pad concept. I like that. It's exciting. Taking something that doesn't exist and creating it, which honestly, that's email marketing. You take something every single time it doesn't exist, you create it and you watch it convert every single time. And that's, for me, it just fit. Everything just fit for me. It literally was like the door opened and I walked right in. I said, yeah, I'm home. So I just see that happening. Like I said, the entrepreneur spirit, and even I can't speak today. The entrepreneur spirit has turned into the solopreneur spirit, where the entrepreneur doesn't even want to get involved with the company, not launching a damn thing.
Right.
And it's literally, I've got an idea. When I finish the idea, I'm going to sell it. And I'm going to go on my way and keep going. And that's what I want to do. And I'm like, oh, this is sort of like going backwards to the, people may or may not like the name, to the Ford era, where he came up with all these innovative ideas for the assembly line and changed the face of business. Henry Ford changed everything. You might not like him, because what he basically did was introduced corporate America to technology and manufacturing. But we're going through that right now. It's happening again. It's just in a different way.
Yep. There's a lot of great evidence of that. If you haven't been there before, go check out microacquire.com. It's a marketplace for people to sell like small SaaS or small agencies. And a lot of these are really, I mean, micro is kind of a key word. And as you mentioned, it's just a person, maybe two, and they develop a concept, proof of concept is proven, a minimum viable product. They generate a little bit of revenue just to kind of prove that it works. And they go, okay, put it out to the market and let one of you private equity people roll it up with something else. Or maybe there's someone that's just better at marketing and they can scale that sucker for them. And that thing is growing like crazy, microacquire itself, because of, I mean, right place, right time, but also they are, there's just so much activity in that solopreneur space.
Right. It's a thought leadership where they're saying, I'll give you my thoughts, you'll pay for them, and then I'll go off and
Yeah,
go to
effectively.
Bermuda,
Yep.
Go back to, go live in Fiji. and they don't want to deal with the company. That's not what they want to do.
That's right.
Now what happened again during COVID, it was that people learned, or maybe they didn't, people learned that either they're disciplined enough to do it themselves and they don't need somebody to say, is that report ready? Did you check your email? Have you finished that, project that, people just knew what to do at home, no problems. And then there were the people that were like, I wonder what's on TV and kept, wandering away from their computer to watch television. And that's the difference. The people that wandered away from television, wandered away from their computer to do television, or all the time ended up on social and never did their work. Those are the people that need to go to a job and need that structure. There's nothing wrong with that, because there's lots of different people in the world, and that's what they need. They need that structure. And then there are people like us that if you keep putting that structure around us, you're literally suffocating us. Every single time you hover, it's like, I'm miserable. I'm really miserable. I'm totally miserable. I got to get out of here. And, not that, I'm not saying we're better. There are the doers and there are the thinkers. And, we're the thinkers. We're the thinkers. And the world can't just run off of thinkers. It can't. So, there's an importance with the doers as well. There are some companies that have to be in an office. I understand that. They have to be. If you've got a service related office, excuse me, need to be in an office. If it's just service related, this goes for all of these companies that have customer service, unfortunately, in foreign countries where they can model it out so it's inexpensive. It's a great concept, but the problem is these people are in a different country. They don't understand the product where the service is. They don't understand the people where the service is. So they're literally dealing with you. They don't know that you've just had a storm. They don't know the intensity of the storm, So they're like, oh yeah, well, what can I do for you? I'm under 5 pounds of water and I have no electricity and I really need somebody to get over here now. Okay, well, and they can't say that they're not in your country and they have no idea of your weather and they don't even realize that the storm has, it's unfortunate. So there are some models that require you to be in the office, and those people are valueless, priceless. Just because they're customer service doesn't mean that they're any worse off than, Albert Einstein. Having gone through a number of storms and had a number of issues, when I call my electric company, I want to know my electric company knows what's going on. I don't want overseas. And it's just, if anyone hears me out there, get it, because I don't mind when I'm on the phone with my bank account and I know I'm overseas, I get excellent customer service, not a problem. But when I've got a power issue, I don't want to be overseas. When I'm talking with my internet provider, I do not want to be overseas. And I know I am. And they're very lovely and there's no problems. I get that, except they can't react because they don't know what's going on. And also, it's 3 o'clock in the morning for them and their boss doesn't come online for another 5. I don't know, all these different hours. It's a wonderful concept. The global community is wonderful and it can't shrink back. It's moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
So these things are all kinks. And one day when we are literally all online at the same time and all able to be aware of what's going on, when all these kinks are worked out, when customer service can really work in a where the service and the product are being sold is separate from where a customer service department is. When those kinks are worked out, it will work. But right now, there's just a few problems there. But that's just me getting on my soapbox about customer service. So speaking of being in different places, what kind of conferences have you been to?
Oh, well, you know how you talked about how, sort of, the global nature of business now. And that's always been one of the things I love about email. Just from the get-go, I remember like one of my first friends was Jordi in the Netherlands with Email Monday.
Yes.
I was telling my wife, this is so cool. I get to network with, these people out there. It was Tamara Heelan I think she was in the Netherlands too at that time.
Yes.
This is way back.
That's how we were introduced through.
Okay. Yep. And it was Mark Brownlow who used to run No Man is an Island. I think that was it. Anyway, it was, and to this day, I have great friends in Poland and everywhere elsewhere. So event-wise, we've been doing 2. And I just realized I've got a minute before I have to jump on a call.
Okay.
So the short version is our friend Andrew and Nellie Bonar put on Email Expo in Spain. I went. Well, we went twice last year, actually. No, 1 year previous, I went. One of my colleagues went this summer, and that by far is probably my favorite, just in general. It's in Valencia, Spain. Very international, and they just put on a good show, period. And they're great people. But I did something for the first time this year, and I went to an Email Insider Summit. And if you haven't been to one of those, it is so neat. It's whereby the brands go and they actually like pay the brands to come, right? They'll they speak, but they'll give them like really great hotel rooms at a nice resort. And this time it was in Hilton Head, South Carolina, or the last time. Sometimes it's in I forget what it is, Deer Valley, Utah, or something like that. And but the vendors, folks like us, you pay a premium to go to get FaceTime with the brands. And that was the first time, and it was a great experience. The ROI, I'm not 100% sure of, but I think it's something that we'll try again.
They're really vitalizing or revitalizing and very exciting. It's very exciting to go. I know the few that I've been to, it's always great to meet the people, to hear the speeches, to mill around. The networking is priceless. It's really.
Yeah, and it's sort of like bond reaffirming in a lot of ways. Folks like us, we may have been in the space for a while, but you might not have seen someone. And there's nothing better than whether you drink or not. If you sit around and have a couple of beers with somebody, it is quite a bonding experience, and it's helped me. Some of my best friends in this world. Chris Donald, who you mentioned previously with Inbox Army, I put on that list who I wouldn't have known if it weren't for email.
Yep. I don't know. I've only been in this industry for 20 years, so I haven't gone to other conferences, but I do know that it's it's quite a unique crew of people. And it's always exciting. Every single show I've been to, it's always exciting. It's great to meet people. And I do suggest that anybody in the industry go to a show
Mhm.
and just experience it, because nobody understands what we do in email marketing. Nobody. Oh, you send spam? No. No one knows what we do. And when you finally sit down with other people that are that do what you do every day and get it completely, you actually you feel like, oh gosh, we speak the same language. You know what happened to me, know what happened to you. Oh, and you sit and you start talking, and 5 hours later, you're like best friends. And I can't recommend it enough. So where can people find you on the internet? And are there any things that you'd like to say before you hop on your next phone call?
Oh, no. Well, yeah, you can always, I'm at Twitter at Indy Scott. And of course, you can reach us at emailindustries.com. If you need help with anything deliverability or list hygiene related, do give us a call. But no, just as a parting is a thank you to you. I'm really excited to kind of watch your journey and excited for what's next for you. It sounds pretty exciting, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity. So appreciate it.
I'm wildly grateful to you. So it's a mutual society here. What's your next conference?
I don't even know what's next. I think the next one might be the Email Evolution Conference. That's a nice sort of general conference. Last time it was in Phoenix. And I'm not sure where the next one is, but I like it. It's big, but not too big.
I think I've gone to one of theirs. I went to the one in New Orleans.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's always fun. Hopefully I'll see you there.
All right, then. Take care. Thanks so much for being there.
Thanks again, Joy.
Okay. Bye-bye.